And when I read the law, I was like, wait a minute, I can transfer myself to adult prison. And I was like, wait a minute, not only can I transfer myself to adult prison, but if I transfer myself to adult prison, I can move to a prison near my child and I can work and send money. I was like, yeah, I'm gonna transfer myself to adult prison.
All right, welcome back to the Cannonball Mindset, and I am sitting here. It's almost surreal because I'm sitting with a real champion. Like, you know, you hear the word champion a lot, and you hear it, I think it's overused sometimes, but I'm sitting with Frank Shamrock, the first ever UFC Middleweight Champion, and undefeated, 4-time defending, retired, undefeated UFC Champion. Like, really the pioneer of the sport. Like, if you know, we were just talking, and when you started, there was only one weight class.
Yep, open weight.
Open weight, which just sounds crazy to me, right? I'm not a huge fight guy, but I'm envisioning like King Kong Bundy versus, you know, the kid from Facts of Life, right? like the drums.
It was like that, but in karate geeks.
Yeah, right.
Cool outfits.
So I'm sitting with Frank Shamrock, and like I said, champion of the world, author, announcer, entrepreneur, business owner, home builder. Right? You are officially a home builder.
I think the girls built the home. I have to say.
You managed.
I think I'm more organized and cheered people on.
Yeah, if you don't know who Frank Shamrock is, the first time I ever heard of Frank Shamrock, I was reading a book called Ego is the Enemy by a guy named Ryan Holiday. And it featured you, and we'll get into that, and your plus minus equals rule, and your code that you live by, this warrior code. But thanks for coming on. This is a real treat for me, real pleasure for me. So thanks.
My pleasure.
So let's get into this. So the more that I think I just said this to somebody else earlier today, that, you know, people see the end. They see the end. They see yesterday. This won't broadcast for a couple weeks, but yesterday or 2 days ago was the Super Bowl, and people see Tom Brady, you know, another championship, or they see whoever having all this success. But a lot of times, what they don't see is all the struggle and all the backstory that got to that point. And your life certainly was no easy ride right to the belt, to the championship, right?
Yeah.
So let's go back. I want to start at the beginning. And the beginning is you came from a I don't even know if the word dysfunctional is the right word. I don't know how to describe it.
I call it pretty dysfunctional.
Dysfunctional family.
Yeah.
Yeah. What was that like? Tell me about that. And
I mean, I don't remember much being a child. I just remember some of the social things in my environment. And so, you know, I remember we were Jehovah's Witnesses, so we lived in a very closed community. I was learning about Jehovah's Witness and that whole vibe.
Yeah.
And that seemed to be very confusing to me, because we were going to play with lions and tigers and hang out, and that just didn't make a lot of sense. And then I just had all these emotional issues, and I could never figure out why. And I was always being sent to doctors and psychologists, and I was always learning new things with new doctors. And I never realized that, you know, what was happening in my home, and, you know, these different abuses and these different psychological things, you know, they were just making me crazy. They were making me act out. And
yeah, because you don't know, you know, a fish in water doesn't know he's in water.
Yeah, you don't know.
Right.
I never knew until I was 11. When I was 11, I threw rocks at a train, and that's a felony in the state of California. Got arrested, and I got sent to juvenile hall for 10 days. And for 10 days, I talked to all the bad kids in the world, and I was telling them how my life was and how stressful it was, and they were like, that stuff doesn't happen. They're like, what are you talking about? And I just started realizing, like, you know, the things that were happening to me was wrong and bad, and they were making me feel this way. And so, you know, I was like, wow, crime is working. Crime's going to get me out. I just doubled down on crime.
Did more of it. So as a kid, you're being physically abused.
Yeah, my mom used to lock me in closets.
Yeah.
And my dad, my stepdad, I mean, apparently from back to when I was 2. My aunt found me when I was 2 years old, hanging upside down in a closet by the back of my knees. And I'm assuming this was a childhood punishment that my mom laid down to help control me. Yeah. I had probably a lot of energy. I'm a super athlete. I'm sure I had lots of energy. So I think this was just a very common punishment. But I didn't become conscious of it until I was like 7 or 8, when your brain sort of turns on.
Oh, right.
And then I started realizing like, wow, it just feels terrible and I'm really sad. And then when I started going to school and having social interactions, things would just fall apart because I didn't have, I was traumatized. So this is the part that really is just so profound to me. Is as a kid, I read or heard that some of your punishments included kneeling with your face facing the wall. Yeah, nose on the wall.
Nose on the wall.
Yeah.
Nose on the wall. I remember as a kid.
Hours.
Like 5 minutes in the corner.
Yeah.
Hours.
Kneeling with nose to the wall.
Yeah, and so, do you think now, looking back on that discipline, as dysfunctional, abusive, as horrible as it is, made you so super focused? Everything I've seen about you seems like you are locked. When you are locked to something, you are, it seems like you're all in. And that to grow up in that household and to last for 11 years, and we'll get to what happened after that, but like that takes, to me, that takes superhuman strength right there. I'm saying more than I could ever imagine you would get in a ring.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it develops your mind.
Yeah.
Develops your mind. And my stepdad, Joe, used to do a lot of different, things to make you psychologically scared. Like he'd hold his hands under the table and ask you questions and make you look him in the eye. And then if he didn't like his answer, he would slap you. And so it was this horrible psychological thing where you were forced to stare in this man's eyes while he communicated, and then he would slap you.
And then you knew, it was coming.
Yeah, so it would just be weird things like that would be designed. And I love Joe because Joe was my dad. Because I never knew any different. I was like, well, this is how we do it.
Yeah,
this is how life exists. And he died of cancer very young after that because he carried all this pain, but both of that. And then his, military, he was a man in pain, and only a man in pain treats a child like that.
Yeah.
So it just sucks, but everybody was in pain, and me especially. Like I couldn't concentrate. I was smart as a bit.
Smart. Yeah, you were
so smart,
kid, right?
And I just couldn't. Yeah, I couldn't finish it. I couldn't finish stuff. I couldn't, because I was traumatized. I just couldn't. And then I'd go home and I get locked in the closet, or get made to live in the backyard, and I just couldn't maintain relationships. I couldn't maintain stuff because, when things happened that were out of sorts or too much emotional, I would just freak out because I had no, baseline for, stability and comfort.
So you throw rocks at a train.
Yeah.
And this is
Don't
really
recommend that.
No,
it's just a bad idea.
Especially in California.
Think of the science. You're throwing it. It's like 20. The train's going 50. It's 70. It's an old dude in the head. Those guys are so old. God bless them. And they're just done, right?
Yeah,
so it's
exactly
it's so dumb.
It doesn't even. So you throw rocks at a train, but that's a pivotal moment in your story.
Yeah.
Like think if you think that one moment of being a dumb 11-year-old and throwing rocks at a train has such a profound impact, because that's where it turns, and you get sent to juvie. You talked about it a little bit, and you go to juvie, and they're like, no, this isn't normal, and you'd rather, at this point, you'd rather stay in juvie than go home.
I wanted to stay there.
And so anything that you could do at this point is to stay, not to. So somebody says to you, hey, listen, if you don't stop doing this,
it's exactly what
you're going to come back here.
Yeah, if you keep doing this. I heard keep doing this and you'll be right back here. I just heard the opposite. Like that was my tool. That was my vehicle. At least that's what I thought. It seemed ingenious at the time.
Yeah, right.
And the people really cared about me in juvenile hall. Like people were like, listen, I'm going to put you in the room now. It wasn't like, go in the room and at some point we'll let you out. Yeah. It was like, hey, now's when you go in the room.
You can get some
I was
meals.
like, oh, okay, okay.
People there that really care about you trying to become healthy.
It just felt different. It felt different. And for the first time in my life, I was like, wow, I'm living in some weird stuff and I have to get out. I have to escape.
So how long does that last? How long?
Oh, I wasn't home for a few more months. Like I instantly doubled down on crime. The minute they sent me back home, then I got in everything possible. And then they sent me to live with my dad for like a week. It's like, this is the last chance. You know, we're going to send you to live with your dad, who I'd never met in my life. And I lived with him for a week or 2 weeks.
This is your real father?
My real father, yeah, Frank. He died. He died this last year as well from stomach cancer. And so as soon as I came back, and I was like, no, I'm just going to keep going. And it wasn't probably a couple months before they took me out, and then they put me in a crisis center. That's where I went first, which was like a, you know, intake for troubled kids, and they don't really know what's going on yet.
Do they know at this point that you are being emotionally abused, that you come from an abusive family?
No, no one ever asked me. No one was like,
why are you doing this?
Yeah.
What's called?
I didn't know why I was doing it, but here's the other thing too. I never realized that it was so wrong. Yeah. And then I was like, well, this is what's happening, and they're like, oh, okay, yeah. Because
that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah, you're all fucked up. And sometimes it was, we don't even know what's going on. You know, we don't know if this is the truth or not. So you could tell people just be like, okay, you know, you're a troubled kid. I just was a troubled kid. So I was always in the troubled kid category.
Yeah.
And half the time,
smart.
I don't think there was
troubled kids are smart. I'm sure.
Yeah.
I'm sure. Well, I'm not sure, but the phrase, if he just apply himself to the right things.
Yeah. Well, some of the best entrepreneurs are, you know, criminals or convicts, because it's the same profession. Yeah. One is just on the up and up, and one is not.
Right. Yeah. That's right.
Same hustle.
So then what? So where does it end? Like, where did the shift happen? Where you said, all right, I gotta. I can't keep doing this. Like I had to.
On the crime?
The other side. Yeah, on crime.
It went all the way to prison. Like, I just kept going, because I didn't realize, you know, two mechanics changed my life. Marrying my first wife when I was 17, because then I became an emancipated adult. And that was like a legal trigger that I wasn't even conscious of. But I was a ward of the state, and then the next day, I was an emancipated adult. But I kept doing crimes like I was a teenager screwing around. And so it went from being, you're gonna be tried as a juvenile, to you're gonna be tried as an adult. And that changed the dynamics of how much time I did and everything else.
Where you went, and the amount of care the people that now gave you.
Yeah, because they're like, yeah, you're an adult. You're going to youth prison, you know, for however long it takes.
Yeah.
And at the end, I mean, I got popped for 20 felonies when I was 17 and a half years old, and they sent me to youth prison for
20
6 years.
felonies.
Mm-hmm. Took a consecutive criminal act on 20 felonies, and I took a 6-year prison sentence. And so when I was 17 and a half, I went to prison for 6 years. And I stayed there for, this is when it turned around. It was about a year in prison, and I realized that everybody who said, you're going to screw this up, and what are you doing? What's wrong with you? And you got to stop. They were all right. Everybody who tried to help me, I was like, oh my God, like, what was I doing? But I was just so messed up emotionally, and I was so angry and so frustrated that I just kept doing it until but I literally woke up in prison. I had a son, I had a wife. I was in prison. I had 6 years to do. And I was like, how do I provide for my family? Like, what am I going to do? I'm exactly what my dad was in my family, which was non-existent. And
you become.
It was that. It was the worst thing in the world. And so I was like, well, this has to change. And so I started changing my mind in prison. That's when, I mean, it was as easy as I took a manila folder and I opened it up. And I started putting things in that I needed to do. And on the front, I wrote who I was. And on the back, I wrote who I was going to be. And that was it. On the front, it was, I'm a liar, I'm a criminal, I'm a cheat, I'm all that. And on the back, I wrote, this is who I'm going to be. And the things in the middle are the things I did to become that. Wow. And that was my base. And that base was walking the yard every day, lifting weights, like knowing every day I put in and build up this body, I'll be able to do something with it. And there's something, you know, that I could monetize. And that was it.
There's so much there. I think for me, what was harder? Was it harder building the body, or was it harder building the mindset to be that person on the back?
It was harder in the mind for me. Body was easy. I was gifted. I had all this time. You know, I learned about the body. I studied, and the body's amazing. It'll adapt to anything you do, good, bad, or otherwise. So to me, the body was a journey. Like it was the thing to save me, focusing on this, and putting everything into the experience there. The mind was the hardest part because I never wanted to fight anybody. I never wanted to, even in prison and even in that world of violence, I was a traumatized kid who had all this violence happen to him. The last thing I ever wanted was more violence.
Yeah.
So I was tiptoeing around that yard, with chest out, playing the role. But the whole time, you're literally scared to death. Everybody's scared to death. That's why they're all in gangs. That's why everything is the way it is. You have to. And I walked alone. I walked with, with the others. Yeah. And, that in and of itself was a whole other journey because there wasn't a group or a team or a thing behind me. Yeah. And my word had to be my word. My thing had to be my thing. Because there was nothing else.
It's just you.
It was just me. So if I did wrong, I was done.
Nobody had your back.
Nobody was. There's no. Yeah. So that was.
So who was the person? Who was the person on the back? Like who was the person you were going to become? At that point in your life, you said, "This is who I am. I'm a liar. I'm a thief. I'm a cheat. Whatever." And on the back, this is who I'm going to become. What did you write? Like who was that person you wanted to be?
It says world champion. Speaker, teacher, father, leader. There's all the stuff I am now. There's all the stuff I wanted to become.
So did that help you create the vision for it? Does writing it down, like I'm fascinated by people that write things down because to me, if you don't write it down, it doesn't provide.
That was the beginning of my vision. In my household, there was one television that was next to Joe's bed. And Joe watched boxing at some point when he was ready, and there was no other TV in the house. So I grew up on books. I grew up playing outside. I grew up like an old school kid in the country. Yeah. And every once in a while we could watch boxing. That was Joe's sport. And so I would watch boxing, and I could see that struggle, that journey, the champion, the thing, the speech. And laying in that closet, I was like, that's what I'm going to become. I'm going to become a champion. And I'm going to use that voice and that power to do stuff. And help people like myself, because this is terrible. And so I always envisioned that I was going to become that person. So when I'm sitting in prison and I wasn't that person, and I was being honest with myself, the truth was I did all this to myself. And the truth was that I could change it all.
If you did it all, then you can certainly undo it.
I was like, wow, I created all this. Why can't I undo it? And I just believed because I had nothing else. And I've also believed, I've always believed in God. And when I say God, I mean there is a energy of love between humans that is unexplainable. And people have given that to me, like my foster parents and like all these people throughout my life who are just like, wow, kid, you got issues. Let me give you some love and see if that helps you. Yeah. And that to me has been my basis of like God. Love is God to me. Yeah. And so when I was in prison, I was like, well, if people love me and will give me this, then I'll just believe. I'll believe it.
Yeah, I believe it to be true.
I believe
that'll be my truth now.
That's my truth, and so that I applied that to my life.
So 6 years you're in prison, preparing. One of my favorite stories is when Nelson Mandela got out of prison. Somebody asked him, said, what were you doing in there all those years? Were you contemplating how you were going to get back and how you? And he looked at him and said, I was just preparing. And it seems like that's what you did. You just spent 6 years preparing for the life that you finally believed you were worthy of.
Yeah, I went for it. Yeah. I applied everything. They sent me to youth prison. I quickly realized my mindset and intentions were way past that group. And I was like, if I hang out here, I'm not going to make it. They're a bunch of kids, doing these long-term prison sentences in youth prison. And when I read the law, I was like, wait a minute, I can transfer myself to adult prison. And I was like, wait a minute, not only can I transfer myself to adult prison, but if I transfer myself to adult prison, I can move to a prison near my child and I can work and send money. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to transfer myself to adult prison.
So wait, hold on.
I went to youth prison first.
So you went to youth prison first, and then said, nope, I want to transfer myself to adult prison.
Wrote a legal writ, and because I turned 18 in youth prison. And then I was doing an assessment. In youth prison, you don't get a day for a day. So if you do a good day in adult prison, you get a day off. In youth prison, you're under the subject of your parole officer, and there's some term, and he decides when you're rehabilitated. And I was like, well, I'm living in a place with gangs and with all these different things that are influencing my existence. I was like, I can't stay here, because the risk is I'm not going to get out in the time I'm supposed to, a day for a day. Who knows when I'll get out if I stay in this crazy place of Lord of the Flies kids.
Yeah.
And so I woke up one day and I was like, I have to transfer myself to adult prison because I have to care for my son, be close to my family, and I have to get out of here or I won't make it. And I wrote it down, and they were like, they sat me, I had like 3 counselors. They tried to talk me out of it because no kid goes and transfers.
It's always the other way. It's like, no, listen, I'm still a kid.
Yeah, and I was like, no, guys, you don't understand. And I literally just kept explaining. I was like, it's like, I'm not like these kids. Like, I know what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to get out of prison and go on this journey. Like, I'm set. But now I got these issues, and so
that might be the best. Listen, I've read everything. I've never heard you tell that story, and that might be the best story I've heard.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, I was like, how do I get money to my son? Like, how do I care for my family? I want to be a good. Like, I have all this stuff I'm supposed to be doing, and how do I do that? Yeah. And I was like, well, I can accomplish some of that by just moving the pieces around and taking a chance, and walking a tougher yard, and following a higher road.
Wow. So all right. So at the end of your term, you get out.
I got out.
And your foster father. 1994. Your foster father.
Yeah. Bob Shamrock. Yep.
Bob Shamrock picks you up.
Picks me up
from prison. And what happens?
Well, he'd given me the talk about 2 weeks before, which was, you're getting out, you got this amazing investment in your body, you've done all the work, and you could have just this amazing careers. Here, there's 2 choices that I think you should pursue. And he gave me the old, you'd be an amazing stripper. And I let that one sit. I was like, oh man, Dad's going crazy.
Amazing.
But my brother had been very successful at it. My brother had used it as a bridge.
He wasn't saying this jokingly.
No, my dad had seen success and was like, you would make a fortune. And I was like, okay. But it wasn't my dream. And then he's like, oh, you'd be a great fighter. This whole fighting thing's taken off. And he started explaining it to me. And to his credit, because I was really scared, he explained it as, it's like really rough sports.
Yeah.
And you're like studying this martial art thing, and I was like, wow, okay, that sounds really it's right up my thing. So I chose the fighting, and I went home one night with him and had dinner, and then I went out and saw some girls and hung out and had some drinks, and then the next day he drove me to the martial arts school, dropped me off, gave me the famous don't show them that you're scared and don't quit. And
wow.
Just drove off in his Cadillac, and I was like, oh my God,
and you're what,
I'm going to go do 24? This. I was 22 years old.
22 years old at this point.
And I walked in, I was like, oh my God, I'm so scared. And that's my first day.
A stripper or a fighter. I'm saying.
And I still could be a stripper. I mean, let's just be honest.
Yeah,
I'm still holding that card.
Might be your second career, right? From your wife. Listen, I got to go to work tonight. I'm with the over 40 Chippendales.
Yes, it's in the mature division.
Okay, so you enter, you walk in the gym.
Yep.
Not, you have the body, you've been training physically.
I was a prison fighter of sorts, had about 5-6 really tough confrontations in prison.
What was your record in prison?
I never got killed.
Yeah, so it's a win.
Yeah, although I almost got killed one day.
Really?
Yeah, and it was the first day I felt like, the second time I felt like I faced death in reality, like really looked at death and went, okay, I'm living true. I'll step forward. And so that was like a huge moment for me when I was in prison that helped me in fighting years later.
Really?
Because I got in a fight with these 8 black guys over the television one day, and it turned into this kind of me against these guys.
Yeah.
And then I wouldn't say anything, so they thought it was a race riot, and so they locked everybody up and they locked us down. Well, somebody, because we were in medium security, said, "Hey, Frank didn't do anything. These guys jumped him," and somebody told, and because it was 8 of them and 1 of me, I was the only one that got released back on the yard. And all those guys went somewhere else. So the picture is,
so you're the stolen rat, right? You're the stolen.
So I get out like after 60 days, because I was just like, dude, I went to turn the TV, they slipped and fell on me, and I don't know how these pencils got stuck in their necks and bodies and stuff. I was like, I don't know what you're talking about.
I fell on
yeah,
all these
they must have, yeah. So they let me out, and then 2 days later, I get my job back in the kitchen, and it's this giant room. I'm reading a book in the corner because I've always been a nerd. I just do keep to myself. And literally 60 guys come in and they shut the doors like straight out of a movie. And they're like, you are a fucking rat and we're here to kill you. And I was like, oh, Jesus.
I'm a rat?
I go, oh, moment of truth. And I just closed my book and I was like, I said, guys, if you think I'm a rat, then come kill me. Because I never rat on anybody. And that's my truth. And they were like, no, he's good. And I turned around and walked away. And I was like, oh,
come on.
God, I swear to God.
Come on.
I swear to God. Now, I think it's because we were in minimum security, because I think anything level 3 and up, I don't think I would have survived that.
Wow.
But yeah. That
so
was first time where I really took a look at death and was like, I think I will accept that if that is my mission.
But you didn't back down.
No, I didn't back down. And my fear was if I did back down, they were going to kill me. Because that wasn't the truth. My truth was the truth.
I didn't rat you out.
If I'd have been like, yeah, what are you talking about? Then I think they'd have been like, no,
you're lying.
You're lying.
Yeah, no. And now we're gonna make some chili with your head. so that's just crazy. So let's fast forward back to the gym. So you walk in the gym.
Yeah.
And now comes time to really start chapter 2 of this warrior march.
Yeah.
And what's that like? You know what I'm saying?
It was horrible. Because I knew I had to do all the exercises, and I'd been training a little bit, 500 squats, sit-ups, push-ups, leg lifts, and then you sparred somebody for 20 minutes. So I knew it was going to be super hard. I was in amazing shape, but it just physically destroyed me. Like the exercises just absolutely destroyed me. And then my brother wanted to do my tryout. He wanted to be the guy.
This is your foster brother.
My foster brother, yeah. Soon to be my adopted brother.
Ken.
Yeah, Ken. So, and I just met him, I met him years before when I was total, craphead. Yeah. So he was looking at it like, oh, here's this convict, loser that my dad's making me run through the system. Yeah. So we
should note that your foster parents had fostered thousands of kids.
But yeah, Bob Shamrock, the Shamrock Boys Ranch. Yeah, I mean, gosh, I think he went up to like 2,000 or more in the 20 plus years that they ran their
on a ranch
group homes. Yeah, and I was in that ranch when I was 13. So I showed up there after a multitude of group homes and foster homes, and Bob was the first guy to ever kick my butt and be like, nope, I'm going to show you what a man is. And
this isn't going to work. So all right, so you were.
I met Ken, and at that night I met Ken in that way.
Another UFC.
Yeah, at the time the UFC was just starting, and it all was just starting. I didn't know anything about it. I was in prison, so you couldn't watch it in prison, and we didn't know anything about it. I didn't know you could tap. Like, I didn't know anything that was going on except for my dad said, don't ever give up. And then the boys were screaming, don't stop. Like, if you stop, he'll beat you. I was like, oh no. So I just kept fighting.
Don't stop and don't give up. That seems like
it was well, I realized because I would stop moving, and then Ken would beat me more, or he would do things to hurt me because I was stopping moving. And he thought, like, that's back in the day, we would just grind people to the point of everything breaking psychologically, physically, and see if they wanted to really fight. Yeah. And that was the job back then. And so that's what he was doing to me. He was pushing me to the very edge to see if I really truly wanted to fight, and I was ready to, give my life and do the thing.
It's like Navy SEALs help.
Yeah, it's exactly that.
But like for years.
Yeah, and I was jacked. Like, it took me weeks to recover. Tore my knees. Like, I had broken things, twisted things, and I thought I was a tough guy, and he just literally beat the living crap out of me for 20 minutes.
And so, are you working?
That's how I started.
Point, or are you just full?
No, that was just day one. I didn't know anything. I just showed up. Day one, I got the absolute living shit beat out of me, and it took me about a week and a half to recover. And then after a week or so, I could hobble in the gym, but I couldn't do anything. And then, 2 weeks after, I started my training, and it was all the stuff.
Did it again, and the recovery period just got shorter and shorter?
Yeah, but we didn't have to do the tryouts anymore. It just became training, conditioning every day and all the exercises. And Ken had learned, this exercise and all this curriculum and concept in Japan with the Japanese pro wrestling organizations. So he brought over this different stylized training. And so we did all of that stuff just like it was in Japan. And I never knew that until I went to Japan and trained there. And I was like, wow, this is all the stuff that we're doing at home. He just brought that home and started his own little world under that training.
And so you had the inside track on it. You had the inside scoop on it before the rest of the world, before America had
100. Yeah, we were the first, one of the very first in the world to start having all the information and kind of putting everything together. And then, you know, the thing that happened in our world was Ken was a great fighter and Ken had the information, but he wasn't like a crazy nerd guy looking for all the mechanics and the, you know, the biometry. Like he wasn't constantly expanding his brain in that way.
Yeah, I mean, you were.
Mine was organically because I was just getting crushed all the time. So I was like, oh no, I better figure that one out. Oh, we got to solve that. Yeah. So it literally became the survival thing. So I was progressing because I was just getting hurt so much. And then I was keeping notes, like copious notes and diagrams, and I was the only guy that would ever ask questions and have a notebook.
Really?
And I'd be like, what about this? And what about that? And every once in a while I noticed that the lesson changed, the mechanic changed. And I'd be like, well, that's weird. And I would note it, you know.
The greatest champion is always the greatest student, right?
Yeah. Well, I thought we were fighting for our lives because that time with Ken, like I thought he was going to kill me. I felt like I was going to die, you know. So I was like, wow. And in prison, you fight for your life. On the streets, you fight for your life.
Yeah.
So like I took that mentality with me into my profession.
And so then when do you get your first fight? Like when are you first?
December 18th of 1994. I trained for 6 months and then I went to Japan. Then I finished my training in Japan. And then I debuted against Boss Rutan in December, I think 18th of 1994.
And what's that feeling like for the first, not the end, not the after the fight, but just the hours, the minutes leading up to it, that okay, this shit's
terrifying.
Real. This is real now.
Just terrifying. Yeah. Because I'd only been in prison. Like I had never been outside of the world of incarceration or that whole existence. Yeah. So I never had experienced anything like that. And then I moved to Japan for 2 months beforehand. And I was literally living in a 10 dojo in the middle of like, a farm field and training with people that only spoke Japanese. So I was in this whole other weird, insane prison world where I was just like, oh my God. And there was this impending clock that I was going to fight this insane, crazy looking Dutch guy. And I didn't know how to fight. Like I literally didn't know anything about fighting. I knew how to fight in prison. And so I was just, every day I'd be like, oh my God, I'm so scared. This is like the craziest existence ever. And I would just be full of just, the weird thing was it was just like being a kid. I'd be full of these, just overwhelming feeling of anxiety and fear and whatever. And the beauty of the training was, by the time I got done training, I'd just be calm and relaxed and tired and thinking about how we were going to eat and train some more and keep doing the thing.
This just became your normal, life. Right? This is your life, and so you get in the ring, and how's that first fight?
It felt like a minute. And it was a 10-minute match. So it was a time warp. There was so much fear and adrenaline. I was so scared. And there's only I only remember, the first time he hit me, because I was just shocked at how hard it was and how powerful it was. And
what just happened?
I was like, wow. And I could see stars and I was like, whoa. And then I remember him breaking my nose. I remember he kicked me with his front kick and my nose broke right. I felt it break, and I was like, oh, he broke my nose. And then I remember him choking me and saying, oh, I've got you, I'm so strong. And then I remember thinking, that's insane. Why is he talking to me? And then they rang the bell. And then I was like, what the hell happened? I was completely, like I was in a separate universe, like I just woke back up again. And I realized this is what would happen to me in fights as a kid, is I would just black out. If stuff happened, I'd be like, ah, and then I would lose all focused consciousness, and I would wake up, I would come to, and you'd be on the ground, and I'd be stomping on your head or something. And so that's what happened in my first fight. It was just this crazy time warp of insane fear, and then it was over in a minute. But it was really 10 minutes.
It was really 10 minutes.
Yeah, and then I won.
And you won. Yeah. And so that led to other fights, which led to other fights.
I was instantly famous, like overnight famous.
Yeah.
In Japan.
Here's this new kid.
Yeah.
24 years old, 23 years old.
Yep. And
he's now famous. Prison to famous. What's that like?
It was just absolutely surreal. Because my whole life had existed in books. and in the stories that I could read in those institutions and in those different worlds. And even at home, I was in such a weird, closed environment. We weren't hanging out with families and, you know, intertwining, you know, stuff. And I never spent the night at another friend's house my whole childhood that I remember. So it was just, my life had existed in these books. And all of a sudden I was doing these things. Like Biohazard came one time to see our fights, and then they're like, dude, come to the concert. And I was like, my first concert ever was Biohazard in Japan at the Liquid Room, and I was diving off stage with them, you know, hours after I fought somebody. And that was, I just went from this insane world of I was locked up, stuck in prison, and like dream, to I was a rock star.
Oh, yeah. From a closet to prisons to...
Yeah, and I was doing everything. Like I could, you know, and that's when I started realizing like I really had the power to manifest anything.
Yeah. Because what's it like, I'm saying, so you win the championship, you get the championship, right? So you get the championship, you win the championship.
You take it.
Take it. I conquer the championship. And so you get a belt. There's a belt, right? Mm-hmm. So the feeling, I run marathons now, so I do a lot of marathon running, and it just happened over the last couple of years where I just started running, and somebody had said to me, why do you run so much? And I just said this on the podcast, and I like the self-image that it gives me. Like, it makes me feel accomplished. And what I realized too is that my whole life I never once was on a championship team. And the reason was, I believe, was I didn't have the right mindset for it. Like you attract what you put out in the world, and I didn't attract championship ethics, work ethics, or mindset. I was a victim in my own life. And so the championships never came. But now, every time I run a race, every time I ran the New York City Marathon, the Chicago Marathon, I run a lot of these marathons, and every time I run it, I get a medal. And I think Patton said, men will die for ribbons. And for me, it's something I've done on my own, where I now see myself as a champion. And just the act of looking at a $10 medal makes me feel significant that I'm becoming the person I've always wanted to become. What did you get? What was that feeling like when you're looking down, maybe the minute they give you this belt, or when you're home and you're looking at the belt, or you know, whatever? Like, what's that feeling like? Is it a sense of like manifestation, like you talked about? Or is it just like like what's that feeling like? It's
an overwhelming feeling of accomplishment, because it's the thing I always wanted.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's the thing through, you know, good and bad and all the stuff. I always wanted it. And so, yeah, that just, you know, to me, they're extraordinary. Yeah. You know, and the feeling of even holding them is extraordinary. Because I remember when I was a kid, I was like, I'm going to have them dripping off my body. I was like, I'm going to be the greatest fighter that exists, because I was like, that's so powerful, you know, and if I could accomplish that and feel that feeling, you know, I knew it would change how I felt inside, you know, from all the stuff that happened to me.
And did it?
It did, yeah. It did instantly. But then, you know, the other half was the other stuff that hadn't been figured out or worked on. Yeah. So while I felt amazing, I also felt sad and depressive, and, you know.
You started to drink more and more?
Yeah. Well, first championship, I mean, I won the King of Pancrase, and that was a hard-fought one, but the first U.S. championship was against Kevin Jackson. That was in 14 seconds. And I set you know, a world record, a Guinness record, like everything you could ever imagine. But, you know, it was supposed to be this knockdown, drag-out fight for the first American championship, and I was going to, you know, go down in flames. I beat him in 14 seconds. And, you know, while I dreamt it and I had the vision and all these other things, I didn't get out or get back what I thought I was going to in that moment. I felt sad. I felt, oh my God, that's it.
This is
good. You know, that's it. Yeah. Like I did it. I'm now the greatest, and that's all there is. And I felt sad. And then I went out and beat the next guy in 20 seconds. And I was like, oh God, this feels horrible. Like there's no one's going to touch me. Yeah. You know, so you know, I started sprinkling salt on it, and, you know, making the machine rusty, because I was like, this is no challenge or fun, or, you know, I'm supposed to, you know, be chested and challenged. And that was your whole life.
That
was my
life.
Yeah, it was supposed to. I thought everything was supposed to be hard. Yeah, and come to find out, it doesn't have to be hard if you don't want it to be. But that was That was my normal.
So at what point does, I talked about it in the intro, but when does the plus minus equal warrior code, when does that start? Like when did you come up with that? Because that really is, I think it's, he described it perfectly in the book, but this is a big thing for me. I remember when I read that book going, gosh, it's such perspective on that. So let's first address what it is.
Yeah. Well, the plus equals minus is the formula I use to solve, fix, do, accomplish pretty much anything. And it really came from the end of my fighting career. Because at the end of my fighting career, my body was failing, everything was falling apart. And I was still holding these massive roles and guiding this giant movement. And I just couldn't deal with I hadn't finished dealing with my emotional issues. And it was stopping my ceiling of success. And I realized that I'd been fighting all these battles and not working on myself. And so the system was made for me to begin working on myself. Because I was like, wow, I can't do all this and then end up, rich and, unhappy and unpleasant and unuseful. Yeah. And that's what had happened to me. I became that person. And I was like, what is this? This is disgusting. But when I went through my journey and I saw everything, I was like, wait a minute, I got all these martial skills and I know what to do. I just was so sad and so dysfunctional that I didn't know how to do it or had the desire to do it. So I started doing it for myself. And I wrote down the code. I know what I live by. I know what my truths are. I know what my beliefs are and my purpose and what I should be doing in this world. I wasn't doing that. Yeah. And it wasn't until I started doing that my whole life changed, that all of this has now happened. And I've been able to take the stage and, I've had all of these past successes. All that happened since my retirement. And since I went, what am I? I'm the greatest fighter in the world. I can kill any man. That has no value. Like, I'm not helping anybody.
Right, no value.
Right? There's no value in that, unless that's my job. And my job had ended. So my new job was, what do I do with this amazing piece of knowledge and information that's allowed me to accomplish and achieve all these things? And that's when I just started writing it down and following the code myself. I was not following the code.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So and that's when I realized.
What is the code? So tell everybody what
it's the code is. It's the morals and fabric of martial arts, with a couple of key tools to help you guide your life, like the plus equals minus, like the live, love, legend idea, just these core concepts and ideas that help you guide your life. Because like me, when you get in places where there's no hope, or you really think you're gonna die, like that's the end, you need something concrete that works, and it's gonna bring you through this and bring you to success. And plus equals minus came because I didn't know how to achieve what I wanted to achieve. And even though I was the greatest fighter in the world, I was able to humble myself and go to somebody who had that and say, hey man, how did you get there? Like, let me serve you until that falls out on me. Like, let me figure out a way to come there and, let me subjugate myself to you because you have what I want.
So the plus is people that you can learn from. Right?
Yeah, or who has anything that you desire, or has accomplished anything that you desire. And my pluses are Jesse Itzler in business, Tony Robbins in speaking, my neighbor Les, who's been married for 48 years. So what's he gonna
teach me?
What's he gonna teach me? You know what I mean? Like,
from him. And you really have to. This is why this is so powerful to me. And it really struck a chord with me when I read it in the book. Is in order to surround yourself with pluses, in order to find the pluses, you have to really let go of your ego. You have to drop the ego. And as he talks about, the ego is the enemy, but there are people who surround themselves, there's people that surround themselves with people that they are superior than in certain areas to only make themselves look good, right? I look good by the lack of others' merits. And, but if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong damn room. And that's what the plus is really about. It's like, I want what this person has. That maybe not the things, but I want this life. I want this marriage. I want this business acumen. I want this, speaking power. And you say, I'm going to drop my ego and I'm just going to learn from you.
Yeah. And then after I learn from you, I'm going to find my competitor, my equal, my person who's trying to do the same thing, who's making money, who's in my space, and I'm gonna measure up, meet up, hang out, figure out what they're doing.
This is
and find out what the game is, how we're playing the game.
So the equal is your competitors become your, not friends maybe, but your equals. They're
your equals. It is friend, not friend. That's your choice. Good, bad, fight, not fight. They're still your equals. But if you're not hanging out with them and you're not comparing your, waist size, foot size, gamemanship, you don't know what's going on in the game.
Yeah, you have to know what's in the game. So the equals is check your temperature, check where you are.
You gotta measure yourself.
Measure
yourself. How do you know when you're a plus if you're not hanging out with your equals? Doesn't make any sense. And the most important one is your minus. This is the most important one. Everyone's like, oh, the plus is the most important. No. The minus is the most important, because that means that you are not only going to humble yourself and learn from somebody, that you're going to measure yourself against somebody else, and then take the time to give that to somebody else.
To teach to somebody else.
Teach it to somebody else. And if you can bring that person up, then this whole thing is complete, and anything is accomplishable, like anything. And I made a movie last year, Bipolar Rock and Roller. I just found a guy, one of my friends, who made 150 movies. I tickled him up. I was like, bro, will you be my plus? And what's your plus? And I explained to him, I want to make this movie because I think it will change the world, but I don't know how to make a movie.
Yeah.
He's like, oh, well, let me teach you. I was like, oh, great. That's amazing. And it took me 3 or 4 months to figure out how to make a movie, but then we made a movie.
Yeah, what's crazy to me, what's really, I'm so in awe of this whole concept, is that you become the person you want to become by being around the pluses. But you will be remembered for the minuses that you help become pluses. Right? I'm saying, because when you leave this earth, people are going to remember you for who you became and what you contributed. That's it. Nothing more. And you've cracked the code with this, right? I'm saying, listen, you've been on Rich Roll podcast. Rich Roll is one of the #1 podcasts in the world, right? Millions of subscribers, and that's a plus in my world. But yet you're sitting here with me doing this interview. That you didn't have to do that, but you contributed. That to me is living out the code. Yeah,
and it pays dividends. What I've realized is, I've had four men that have stepped up to be my father, and 3 of them have died. Man, life is life. Like, this is it. And each one of those men live in me, and each one of those lessons are taught. Each one of those men who stopped for do nothing to help me, dude, they're alive, because I'm like, listen, let me tell you, this is what Bob Shamrock taught me. This is why we live this way. If we as a people, if we as a community, if we as business people, can just think about, the repercussions of teaching and the value of it. I was super blessed to be able to teach martial arts for almost 20 years. And that, ability to connect and interact and help people learn, and even through the smallest, mental and physical limitations or lack of whatever, just answering questions to people while connected to them as human beings is just so powerful. Imagine when you have such a, finite focus and you have the same passion.
Yeah, right.
Like Jim was like, oh my God, you want to make a movie? Yeah. I made 156 movies. I would love to make it. Like, he was overjoyed to share his knowledge with me.
Yeah.
And I was going, what is Jim gonna, like, he's gonna think I'm a dirt. Like, I was kowtowing it, and he was overjoyed. Like, he was blown away.
It gave him such a sense of significance.
He was like, oh my gosh, and I was like, yeah, I'm gonna teach this kid who's doing the film, because we don't know about filmmaking, and we have to have this film made. And he was like, wow, that's so powerful. He's like, dude, I would love to be a part of that.
What's the film about?
It's about my buddy, Mauro, bipolar rock and roller. He has bipolar. So the
guy I just met?
Yeah. Yeah, so for our family looks after him. I manage his career, but we made a film about him. We've been filming him for about 7.5 years, because he's been on television since he was 16 years old in Canada. He's 46 years old now, and we've got 30 years of him on television. And for the first 25, he was manic and completely out of control. And you just see him mature, and he has an amazing success story, and he's following the code and mind, body, and spirit every single day. And he's gone from medication and mania and a horrible life to he's like literally the most successful sports broadcaster in the business right now, holding 3 network contracts.
Wow.
So he became my best friend because I ended up broadcasting next to him. I was writing the code out and starting to live it, and I was like, buddy, you want to achieve success? I was like, I want to write all this stuff down and we're going to do it. And he's like, I believe you. And so he's been on the journey. He's been with me for, he's been in the U.S. for now 6 years. Oh, sorry, 6 years. So we're on year 6.
Wow.
Yeah.
So looking back, gosh, all those years ago, you know, financially set, making a difference in the lives of others. You're a home builder.
Home builder.
So I
don't know if I can technically put that on my resume.
Well, so talk to me about this trip to Mexico, because this thing is. I had a conversation with a mutual friend of ours, and she was like, "Oh yeah, you know, I went down with my kids, and Frank took his kids, and we went to Mexico and built a house for our family." And I'm like, "What?"
So powerful.
So tell me about it.
We did it through a sister charity of ours that we work with called Hope Sports, and they're athlete-based, purpose-living athlete-based. This was my second build, but yeah, I mean, we put together a rad group of friends, and we go down for 4 days. We stay on this big compound, and we literally build a house. When it starts, it's nothing but a foundation and a bunch of boards, and then in 2 days, basically, we build a house, and then we give it to them. We turn it over, and they move right in, and we fill it up full of food and toys and, you know, stuff for the mom, and we just create this whole, you know, powerful life experience. And to be there and just go through it, just, I mean, because it's board by board, you just build a house. It's extraordinary. It's so powerful. And I mean, I'm a pretty emotional guy, but like at the end, you know, I have to hide in the corner because I'm just sobbing because it's so empowering as a human. And then you see this family whose life is literally just, you know, they're living in a mud shack, and then, you know, their whole, you know, aura changes, their whole everything. Life changes. And the most powerful one was this last time. Is there was one of the little boy who was with the family, the Martinez family, and, you know, he'd never had a bed in his life. He just had this little cushion thing in the corner that was half couch, half corner cushion thing, and he was showing it all proudly. This is my room, and these are my toys, and it was literally like little figurines lined up, you know, in between the space of the 2x4, and that was his area, and it was just the saddest thing you've ever seen in your life, and he couldn't have been happier. And he's just going, this is where I sleep, and look, and la 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 la. And then to see his face when he walked into his room for the first time, he couldn't comprehend what was going on. It was coming, and it was coming, and it was coming, and then he just started sobbing because he realized that he'd never even experienced that before. And so everyone just fell apart. I mean, it was so powerful. But that's what the build.
You had your daughter with you.
Yeah. I took my little girl, and she was 9 at the time. So
what was her reaction to the experience?
She loved it. I mean, she was blown away. She'd never seen poverty. You know, she's never seen anything like this. She's had an amazing life. And then, you know, I mean, I've literally been home for all these years. You know, when I retired, and I've been super dad. I've been, you know, PTA dad. I taught 2nd grade PE. Like I was
Frank Shamrock's at the bake sale.
I do hair. We lemonade stands. Like I am literally insane dad on getting it done. Because I also realized I'm teaching my daughter. You know, and like my dad, I didn't have a dad. I don't know. A bunch of men stepped up and helped man me and guide me, but I just never had that. So I realize now my influence and opportunity, I can teach her like really what a man should be like. Like I'm a bad man, but I'm the most gentle, you know, teaching, guiding, you know, let's figure this out and empower you as a human being. And I can't wait to see how she grows up. Because I mean, I got to stay home for 8 years. 8 years of like focused development. I taught her sign language when she was like 6 months old, because I was like reading about this developmental brain science that kids can communicate, but they don't have the lingual skills yet. Yeah. So I was like, no way, this has got to be goofy stuff, right? I'm retired, I got all the time in the world, read all about it, started teaching her sign. Like a couple months later, whoop, whoop, she's talking to me. I'm going, oh, this is crazy. So I mean, the whole experience, I got to be there for.
So what do you do now for personal growth for you? Like from that day of starting to invest in yourself to today, what do you do for personal growth?
I have a pretty rhythmic lifestyle. and it's all part of this Warriors Code that I live. Literally every day I wake up and I pray. The moment I wake up, it's to me like life is a gift beyond, especially after my life. It's amazing that I wake up every single day. Yeah. Like to me, that's an absolute mind-boggling gift. And then I go right into meditation, and I put myself in a really nice state. I get out of bed, and then my day begins, and my whole day is just caring for my daughter, providing for my family, having fun with my friends, and like doing, things that I think are of value. I drive my daughter to school every day, so I'll red eye home from a from a flight, whatever. I'll get home at 4 in the morning so I can drive her to school at 6:45.
And how long is that drive?
It's about 12 minutes.
And it's probably a weird question, like why do you need to know how? But I'm wondering, like, what's that 12 minutes?
It's exactly what you think it is. I am cheeing her out and talking about school and the next stage she's going to perform on. And I mean, I see it as, I walk to school every day going, oh my God, I'm going to school, I'm a freak. Oh my God, I'm going to school. Like, if someone talks to me, I'm going to cry. Like, I was a freak. I was an emotional basket case. So I see, like, I can charge her up in the morning and just give her all this confidence and love and support, and then it really empowers her love of school and learning. So to me, I take, it's 12 minutes of, the mirror's turned, I'm looking right in her eye, and we're just having this, because to me that's when her brain wakes up and she turns on. Yeah. And so I want to be in front of that.
Yeah, I realize as a father of twin 14-year-olds that my biggest job as a father is, what am I programming them with?
Absolutely.
Right? Like the words I'm using, the way that I treat their mother, the way that I work, the way everything, they're watching everything I do and listening to everything I say, and I'm having a profound impact, right?
Yeah, you are the model and you are the leader.
Yeah. So a couple more questions and I'll let you go. So what's next? So what you're gonna produce a movie, you made a movie, you're gonna get
I got another series coming out. That's next. We're doing a series called The Truth About Mental Health. And that's a celebrity-driven 8-part little mini bio docs about celebrities, their mental health experience. And doing that in conjunction with the NAMI, National Association of Mental Illness, and through Fountain House in New York, which are leaders in community club care of the severely mentally ill. I'm doing a little entrepreneur activism, so they're my equity partners, and I'm providing through the digital asset a consistent donation and revenue to them, as well as we're creating this awesome, what I hope will be a mind-changing television product.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and we've got amazing support, and I can't tell you the names that have committed to it, but we have some major stars that want to sit down with Mauro and have a talk about mental health and really, tell their story and why.
Do you think it's becoming? Do you think that's becoming more people are becoming more open to talking about their battle with mental health?
Yeah, it's a social barrier that's quickly being pushed through.
Yeah, I saw there's a huge. I blank on the name of the healthcare provider that just did a huge ad about, because you think about health insurance, think about the physical health insurance, but maybe it was Cigna is now saying, hey, listen, you need to get your mental health checked too, and this is just as important. I'm saying, what's in your mind that drives everything, correct?
Yeah, it's the last big social barrier that I see, that we're pushing through right now. So, and I don't think that's going to take long at all.
No,
there's a lot of momentum, and a lot of corporations. There's a lot of people that are slowly changing their mind about it, and that's what we've been working towards for the last couple of years.
Yeah, a lot of the corporate clients that I work with on a weekly basis, they encourage me in my trainings to talk about mindfulness and about mental health and understanding that it's okay. Right?
Yeah,
it's okay. It's awesome. Where do people find you? So you're everywhere. So
I am everywhere, but I'm at Frank Shamrock everywhere, which makes it really easy to find me.
Yeah.
And then frankshamrock.com, and then I have a couple of corporate of the Warriors Code corporate events coming up.
You do?
Where I'm adding the bare knuckle boxing as a
wait, what?
medium.
What?
Yeah.
Tell me more about this.
I wrote this program for Google years ago. And what it is martial arts is a very intimate experience. Yeah. And the scariest thing in human consciousness is a fist flying towards your face. And we've been programmed to blink and hide and run and do everything to protect because it really hurts and it's really damaging. But that in itself as a medium for leadership and for communication is extraordinary, because you really have to connect and communicate with somebody, trust somebody, and begin an intimate conversation with your fists if you're going to do bare knuckle boxing. And we find it just literally opens people up like you could never imagine. Because most people don't have a fist flying towards their face, know what to do when it comes, or have any response to it except for to close your eyes and run away.
I'm 6'8", 250, and if I saw a bare knuckle fist, if I saw any fist coming at me...
Right, it's arresting and stopping, and you're not really sure what to do, but this is how communication really is. Bare knuckle boxing is just a basic communication source. You can't bare knuckle box, you're probably not a very good communicator. The other good thing about bare knuckle boxing is the ultimate self-defense. So you will no longer be afraid of anyone ever punching you again, because you'll know exactly what it is, how to deal with it, and then you can make the decision to deal with it or not.
So this is going to be a seminar? Is this seminar based?
Yeah. So what I do now is I speak, I tell my story, then we do a little breakout. It's 2 days. And it's a leadership course.
Oh yeah. So where do we find this? Frank Shamrock.
You can find it on frankshamrock.com. Yeah, and you'll start seeing me do videos about it and stuff, because it's the new, it's what I want to add, and it's got tremendous results. Like the response has been fantastic on people's ability to communicate through it.
That's awesome. That's awesome. All right. Again, thank you. I can't listen. My stepfather is a huge boxing fan and was friends with Muhammad Ali.
Oh wow!
And it's craziest story. Muhammad Ali had opened a camp in Philadelphia, in Pennsylvania somewhere. This is years and years and years ago. And my father-in-law, who lived in Baltimore, said, "I'm going to go up and meet the champ." And my mother-in-law said, "You're crazy, you're not going anywhere near him." So he drives 2.5, 3 hours up to this camp, this training facility, big compound, and he scales a fence. He scales a fence. And he walks up to this cabin. There's a whole bunch of cabins. One cabin with the light on the door. He knocks on the door, and the bodyguard or guard answers the door and says, "What are you doing here? You can't be up here." And he said, "My name's Bob, and I just came from Baltimore. I came to see the champ." And he said he saw Muhammad Ali eating dinner at a table a couple feet behind. He said, "Well, you can't just come in here. It's private property." And Muhammad Ali said, "The man drove up from Baltimore to see me. Let him in." And he let him in. And he sat down and offered him dinner, and they talked for several hours. And for the next 20 years, he would go up there a couple times a week and, became friends with Muhammad Ali. And so my wife, a couple years ago, I'm digging through like old pictures. I'd seen videos, and every time I go to my father-in-law's house, it's a tribute to Muhammad Ali with all these videos and stories. And a couple years ago, we're looking through these old pictures of my wife as a child. And there's a picture of her sitting on Muhammad Ali's lap as a child, right? And he's kissing her on the cheek or something like that. I'm like you have this picture of you and the champ, and you just have it in a shoebox? Like, this thing would be blown up on my, it'd like be the entrance to my house. And I was always like amazed at just the generosity of Muhammad Ali when I hear these stories about him. And the fact, and I kind of feel that today, the fact that you took me in, you sat down with me for an hour, so hospitable. I'm saying anybody, not anybody, I should not say that, anybody can say they're going to live a certain kind of warrior code, but you certainly exemplified it by giving me your time today. So totally grateful and appreciative of that.
It's my pleasure.
Yeah.
Would it be weird if I also said I sized your bodies up and completely analyzed how to kill you both, just in case this was fake or put on by the Russians?
Yes, it would freak me out.
That'd only be prudent, by the way.
But I will tell you that my wife texted me right before I came in, and she said, "Just for a social promo act, you should let him put you in a chokehold and let him tap you."
Yeah, there you go.
I said, "No." I said, "Listen, we're good. We're good."
I think I'm okay.
Yeah, I said, I'll shake his hand now. So no chokehold. So, all right, last question. So, when you leave this earth, 60, 70 years from now, when you are gone from this earth, what do you want your contribution to have been?
Well, I hope to teach people. I think I'm a teacher. I think my skill set is teaching. So I hope to have taught a lot and help change people's minds and help them learn stuff and learn more information, particularly to protect themselves. Yeah. I think that'll be my larger contribution. I don't think becoming the greatest fighter and kicking everyone's ass is my contribution. So. No. I don't think so.
I think it's a vehicle.
I think it was just one point A to point B. But I once thought it was, and then realized like there's a lot of value in that. But I really think it's my ability, because I have a gift for teaching. I have taken the time to connect with so many people that I know how people learn, and I can feel their intentions, and I know how to teach them.
Yeah. And when you say teach them to protect themselves, you're not just talking physically.
No, I mean in every way. No, the Warrior's Code is everything.
Right.
It's mind, body, spirit. It's wealth, health. Like
everything.
It is the thing, because without those things, if you don't have money, you get nothing. Like it is all those things, and that's I think one of the things most people don't realize. I had millions of dollars of life insurance because I always thought I'd die fighting, and I thought that'd be my exit. That makes perfect sense. I'm in a cage fighting career that I'm fighting life or death. That's reality. That's called taking care of your business. That's the Warrior's Code. Without that, if I had died, my whole family would have been destitute. Yeah. So that's part of it. And taking care of the business, part of it. Taking care of the family, the love, mine. So.
Body. That's awesome. Yeah, if you listen, check this guy out, because we just scratched the surface today. The Warrior Code, Uncaged is your book.
Yeah.
Check him out. Go to his seminar. I'm signing up. I don't know when it is. We're
gonna build houses. I'm gonna bring you down to the house building.
Yeah.
Bring your family.
I'd love to bring my kids down to the house building.
Yeah, especially at that age, 14.
Yeah,
perfect time.
Love for them to have an impact like that in the world. And I think you're. I was amazed with you just when I just read that part about the code in Ryan Holiday's book, and today I'm like, oh, there's a ton there. There's a lot more to meet the eye than just being the champion of the world. So awesome. Thank you, brother.
Thank you, brother.